4 days before Christmas, Thursday, December 21st, 2017. I wake with the taste of ash in my mouth. My groggy mind slides away piece by piece like an orange peel as I slowly sink below the fog of my dream state. Confusion always sets in during these moments. It's usually met with relief of finding myself safe at home, but today I'm swept up in the nagging realization my current circumstances are anything but liberating. Panic builds as I remember I have no job, a warrant out for my arrest, and a deep canyon of debt I have no hope of climbing out of. There usually isn't a good excuse for my routine hypervigilance. Certainly not when I'm searching the road for IEDs on my way to Noah's soccer practice, and even though I feel better doing it, there really aren't a lot of benefits to identifying escape routes in every room I enter. But today is different. I'm justified in feeling threatened, and in my debilitating anxiety, I want nothing more than someone to provoke me so I can stomp their guts out. I never made the decision to keep the circumstances of how I lost my job, or even the fact I lost it, from Amaya. I'd tell my wife if I could figure out a solid plan of attack. Truthfully, I'd have no qualms if I didn't think it would be the definitive end to our marriage. This isn't the Christmas my son deserves. It's not fair to Noah, but there's nothing I can do about it. Still groggy, I become aware of the dialogue happening around me. My mother, who is driving her car, is speaking with Amaya, who is sitting in the front passenger seat. The conversation revolves around my mother's two favorite topics, religion and politics, although to her it's all one big incestuous matter. To her, there aren't two parties. There's morality, and then there's the wicked path of mortal sin that acts as the slippery slope to the Antichrist. Amaya, 10 years my junior, was born and raised in San Diego. The total of her world experience involves growing up in SoCal, a couple trips to the Philippines to meet her mother's relatives, and a jaunty holiday in Canada. She deals with elitist left-coast liberals all the time, but her only genuine experience with the alt-right of real America is from the internet and my mother. It hasn't always been such a big deal. It was more city mouse versus country mouse before identity politics defined everyone's personality. People didn't look for differences as much as they sought common ground, but something's happened to significantly fracture the culture. Throughout my lifetime, I'd always gotten the sense things were getting better, not just for people like me, but for people of all races, genders, and lifestyles, citizens and visitors alike. There was evidence of this in almost every corner of my experience, but it turns out I was living in my own bubble. Gradually, things began happening in the country I love. We suddenly were more divided than any other time I could recall. I mean, there had been the L.A. riots, Bill Clinton's impeachment hearings, mass shootings, and hate crimes in the past, but it seems like there's a story like that every day now. We went from debating whether we were a post-racial America to whether we were a post-fact America. The media's goal shifted from informing views and challenging beliefs to creating a platform that resonates with a large enough audience seeking out the dopamine injection of a confirmation bias to generate a revenue stream. There are more of these outlets than ever before, all racing to break the story first and put their spin on it, spending less and less resources on ethical journalism. Consumers can shop for the news that validates their pre-existing ideologies and build their own echo chamber. They can be a connoisseur of their own curated lies. And everything's become a hashtag. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag Blue Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter. Even the president addresses the world with tweets. It isn't about doing what's right anymore. It's about winning the argument, shutting down the opposition, keeping them from speaking. Cover your ears, your eyes. Who fact checks the fact checkers? the world has truly become a smaller, pettier place. I don't deal with that shit very well. On one side, I've got people telling me I can't possibly understand the plight of marginalized communities because I'm privileged. Never mind the fact I come from a broken home, grew up in a trailer park, and am buried under a mountain of debt. When I'm the same age my grandparents were when they retired, I'll still be paying off student loans. I've been discriminated against by the police based on my economic position. I've been harassed and threatened based on ethnicity, religious beliefs, and anything else someone thought was a chink in my armor. Never mind the fact I've had to earn everything I've ever gotten in this life and to this day have to watch helplessly, like everyone else, as Social Security dries up, jobs move overseas, and healthcare costs mean a medical emergency is a choice between death and debt. I've got it better off than everyone else because I'm a white male, which makes me entitled. Somehow, because the characters on almost every television show are white people with good jobs, amazing houses, and tiny situation comedy problems, people seem to think it's reflective of my experience. Meanwhile, I have to make my way in my one and only turn on this orbiting rock, paying atonement for racism, misogyny, and bigotry that I had nothing to do with. And then on the other hand, there are people that flat out refuse to acknowledge the issues we face today, the deniers that can be shown undeniable evidence something happened, and will always, without fail, say, "We don't have all the facts." Humans who always have an excuse for why the killing of a person, a culture, or a planet is not murder, who believe welfare for the poor is a mismanagement of funds, but corporate welfare is how you jumpstart the economy, who would rather build up the industrial military complex than invest in our ailing schools, healthcare, and infrastructure, who instead of investing in our future or saving up for a rainy day would rather spend billions on building a literal fucking wall. They'd rather defend the free speech of a racist with a torch than tolerate a football player taking a knee during the national anthem. And God help you if you have to accuse one of theirs of something heinous. No one is without sin, and you're committing unforgivable heresy by judging one of God's servants on earth. The party of personal responsibility would rather make excuses, say crass and disgusting things, and drag you through the mud than take any real, meaningful accountability. I could go on and on about this. Honestly, I'd love to. Raving about the world's great ills is one of my favorite ways to skirt around the problems plaguing my actual day-to-day. Perhaps that's why my mother gravitates toward fringe conspiracies. She can rail on and on about the government controlling the weather, or vaccines causing autism, or chemtrails poisoning the populace, or fluoride in the water turning the frogs gay, and it'll never make a difference. Maybe it eases the real concerns in her life she feels powerless to change. Luckily, for the peace of everyone, Amaya takes it all in stride when either of us goes on a rant. Somehow, she finds a way to mix her shock with a healthy dose of amusement. My wife tells me I'm using my diatribes as a way to push buttons and poison relationships. She tells me I won't win against her because she has a superpower to fight me. Empathy. That's one of the biggest issues in a relationship, if I'm being honest. I used to be a lot like her, but these days I prefer to lock my front door, sit in my favorite chair, kick back a few brews, and let the world outside of my walls rot. Amaya likes to open the windows and feel the air on her face, saying the room is getting stuffy. She yearns to travel and see all the planet has to offer. She makes friends everywhere we go and invites them over for dinner parties, and that shit's getting old. My mother's politics is one of the few things my wife and I don't fight about because We're both on the same page there. I wouldn't put it past them, my mother says. We already know they're using the media to divide us by race. They're influencing our elections. Amaya says, I heard about that. The Russians, right? I unlock my phone and scroll through text messages from coworkers who want to know what happened to me. Oh, shit. What if someone posted about it on my wall? I swipe and switch to Facebook. My mother laughs. Honey, the Russians are just a red herring. Like Mark Twain said, if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. So when you see yet another news story about yet another school shooting, you have to wonder. Wonder what? Someone did post about it, and there's a string of comments. I delete the thread, hoping I'm not too late. I'm not saying they fake everything, but I've seen some pretty good evidence from news sources I trust suggesting they might have. I just think they have a lot to answer for. I'm in the middle of making my profile viewable only to me when someone sends me a message. I glance away from my phone and see Amaya making eye contact with me in the mirror on the underbelly of the passenger sun visor. She rolls her eyes and smiles at me before looking back at my mother. Why would they fake something like that? Amaya asks. My mother's tone drives home just how obvious her answer should be. Because they want to take our guns away, sweetie. When I open the message, my breath catches in the back of my throat. It says, Hey, Mud, I heard you're in town. Would be nice to catch up. It's from Gail Ardor. But they show actual footage on the news, Amaya says. They interview the victims' families. Oh, honey, do you believe everything you see on TV? My mother shakes her head. Look, I don't mean to be callous. There's nothing more heartbreaking than for a parent to bury their baby, but I've seen videos of people who were supposed to have died, alive and well, after the supposed shooting. All you have to do is get on the computer and search for false flag operation or crisis actor, and you'll find a ton of websites exposing the truth. My mind is splitting into tiny segments. Part of me is totally aware Amaya is finding it difficult to extract herself from the disturbing course their conversation has taken. This shard watches as she gropes for a safety line that will leave things amicable for everyone. Then there are the fragments continuously cycling through the events of the last 2 days, trying to find greater meaning in a pile of shit. This is the piece of my mind I'd like to give to Stacy. It's the wedge currently editing and re-editing exactly how I'd fillet that horror if I could turn back the clock. And finally, there's the portion writing my reply to Gail. Amaya says, I don't like to think all the people you'd need for a conspiracy of that size would willingly play along. You'd need dozens, if not hundreds of people, including police officers and firefighters with careers that would be public record. My mother nods. Amaya's words seem to have made an impression. That's true. When she speaks again, her voice is soft. She calls my name. My thumbs type away, writing, Oh, what did you have in mind? My mother calls my name again. This time, I answer her with impatience. What? She says, When you came back. I know what she's talking about by the tone she's taking. It's the same hushed tiptoe she always approaches this subject with, and I don't appreciate contemplating how she'll manage to lump this in with her conspiracy theories. I'm thinking of the words I'll use when I lash out at her and put a stop to this madness, but the way she looks at me stops me cold. My mother's eyes bore into me through the rearview mirror. I can see it for what it is. This isn't about God. This isn't about politics. This is about pain. This is about confusion. It's about a mother who's never stopped seeing the ghosts of her babies. For the first time in days, my mind is fixed on a focal point. "What is it you said to me on the day you came home?" I don't take her bait, saying only, "I don't remember." "I do." Placing her hand on Amaya's knee, my mother says, "Warriors don't fight for ideas. They don't die for justice or truth, and it's not about coming back home. He said, when a soldier lays down his life, it's always for his brothers." I shake the last bit of sleep off, making eye contact with my mother through the rear-view mirror. I lean as far as I can against my seatbelt and say, "Hey, crazy woman, don't twist my words to support your paranoid delusions." That shuts her up.